One thing about me is when I was 18, I'm not going to do the whole song because it's kind of cringy. This is the story of my crazy stalker when I was 18. I had just moved to London, had no friends other than my sister, and I rented an apartment with my sister as my first adult house by myself. I was always very cautious. I kept it really clean, never had people over because I didn't know anyone. I was in a really nice bougie neighborhood as well. But of course, I had to attract a crazy one. That wasn't just any stalker. I just wanted to know what I'm up to. No. That was an 80-year-old lady that lived at the apartment downstairs that decided to make my life living hell. She had long hair, smoky eye, the type that would probably microwave a hamster. She would chase me down the stairs with the W word. She would knock on my door and scream. She followed me to the gym. You're wondering, Anastasia, why didn't you call the police? Well, I did. Multiple times. And you know what they did? Absolutely nothing. I had to call them for them to...
No, but the way I'm shaking right now, I just walked out of Sherway Gardens. It's broad daylight on a Saturday. There's tons of people around and oh my God, I can still see them. Anyways, I'm walking across a car to get to my car on a crosswalk, and the man driving rolls down his window and screams at me. He's like, "You're so sexy. I love tall women. I want those fucking long legs. Get over here, get over here, get over here." Kept yelling and getting louder and louder. And then finally I was like, no, like, fuck off. And then I like quickly ran to my car and I passed a girl and she was like, "What a creep. Like, are you okay?" And I was like, "I think so." So I got in my car, locked the doors, and now I can literally see him across from me sitting in his car that he was originally exiting out of the parking lot.
Something interesting about me is that every single person in my family has had a stalker. My whole family being me, my older sister, my mom, and my dad. I didn't really put two and two together that everyone had had a stalker until my parents and my sister were trying to give me advice on my own situation that I realized, oh, so we've all dealt with a stalker before. Cool. A big difference is that both of my parents' stalkers were of the opposite gender, versus me and my sister both had stalkers that were girls. So whenever I would tell this story, people would be like, "Hold on, she?" For me, it all started in my freshman year of college. She was in the same class as I was. I think her and I had a total of maybe 2 conversations, if I'm being generous. I could tell that there was something just a little bit off about her. One of the interactions I had with her, I remember it was me and one of my really good friends who was also in the class that we had together. And me and her were just looking back and forth because she was making such weird comments and just acting very strange. That was the last in-person conversation I had with her before she DM'd me asking to hang out. I am being stalked. Get with me while we talk about it. After I came home from my Mexico and California trip, at that point I was gone for probably 2 weeks. I didn't really think anything of it because, I always, by the way, if you're watching this, I always have someone at my house. Even while I'm gone. Doesn't matter how long I'm gone, there's always someone there. So when I come home and look at my Ring camera footage and see that there's 2 guys sitting in their car in front of my house for a good while, I get a little freaked out. At that point, I thought nothing of it. I'm like, whatever, maybe it was just a weird thing because my house is kind of in the middle of the road. A few days go by and my mom goes to look at the cameras again. Someone has been messing with our electrical box, trying to unplug the cameras. And I've also been getting some weird messages, but obviously I pushed that off, whatever, people are just weird on the internet. I've been known about that. I don't know if it's a weird coincidence or what it is. Because first of all, why would someone show up and sit in front of my house in their car? Keep in mind, they're not parked anywhere, they're sitting in the middle of the road. I forgot to mention this, but the person I had at my house went out because they noticed, why is someone still there? So they go out and they're like, "Hey, what do you want?" And they still are sitting there, window rolled up, not saying anything. So they just park a little bit more forward so the camera doesn't see the full car. Keep in mind, it's also a really, really nice car, so I'm really confused as to why they're in front of my house. Let me know your opinions in the comments and if you think that's a coincidence or it's not. Get ready with me while I tell you about my crazy stalker experience. So I'm in California right now. I'm filming with GoFam and one of my best friends, Gavin, and a couple of my other great friends. And I was like, you know what? I think TikTok should know about this. So for those of you who know me, you would know that I've grown up in the public eye. I was on Toddlers and Tiaras when I was younger. And so my social medias have always been public for my entire life, which is fine, but it kind of made me, this situation kind of made me realize okay, I need to take a step back. So for a while, my only public platform was Instagram, and then I kind of switched over to Snapchat because a lot of creators were making money on there. So I was like, you know what, let me switch over to Snapchat, So of course, my Snapchat is public, and I started to notice that for a while through Instagram, this guy or this fan account started always commenting first, which is fine, texting me, and then it started to be like FaceTime calling me on Instagram, and I don't know, I kind of just got weirded out by a lot of things. So then I noticed that the account added me on Snapchat, and I didn't even add back, but still my Snapchat is public, so you can still message me. So after the account added me on Snapchat, it kind of was quiet for a while. Like, I really didn't see any comments or calls on Instagram or Snapchat or anything until like a week after it was quiet, something happened. So I've always been very private about my private life.
My brain was like sending me these images of me having a daughter. I don't have any children. Dancing at her wedding. My brain also showed me like pretty horrific things, like images that I've only seen in horror movies of what someone in a room with no consequences might do to me. And that, which was a pretty potent combination. The last thing my brain brought up for me was a scene from the TV show Dexter. I was not like a super fan of the show Dexter. I liked it. In this scene, it's like he's surely not going to make it. He says, a wolf in a trap will chew off its own leg to survive. Its survival instinct is that strong. And I don't remember bookmarking this scene in my mind. It wasn't like something that I watched again and again. It was something that my mind must have just put in the back in case we needed it at some point, and we did, which I took as you need to find any way that you can to survive this. My feeling was pretty strong, and I don't know if that's just intuition or fear, but my feeling was that he was not there with the intention to let me go. At the moment, there was no part of me that thought this, especially with the way that he was, that this man has a lot of mercy for me. You know, like I said, I was bawling, I was crying, and that only got him more excited. So I'm trying to go fast, but I'm trying to do this without the AC so you guys can hear. So I make up my mind to sacrifice my arms. In my mind, I was like, okay, while I'm sitting here about to get gas, I just figured I would do a little story time. I've been dealing with a stalker for the past 3 years. This person is so miserable and deranged. There are just some people in this world who have nothing to lose, and they prey on people like me. And unfortunately, I'm a victim of this. They create fake numbers and accounts to harass me, my family, anyone that I love, anyone associated with me, anyone that they can get access to. I've changed my number and I've removed my information off Google, but it still happens. It happened yesterday. They just spiral. I could be vacationing, they're gonna spiral. I could be with a friend, they're gonna spiral. I could be with my man, they're gonna spiral. I just existing, they're gonna spiral. And just for context, they've gone as far as saying my dad has raped me. I'm in an abusive relationship with my man. I am miserable. I am unhappy. My business is doing bad. No one should associate themselves with me. They just say some really mean, hurtful things. And the thing is my character, everybody who's surrounded by me knows and loves me, and they know my character and they know what I'm capable of. And I don't have a mean bone in my body. I have a heart of gold, and I'm favored and loved by God. And that shows in everybody I associate myself with. And that alone makes this person angry. So what is my aura is that, I guess, and it makes this person mad. And like, what a sad life. What a sad life. Or what a sad existence, you know? I'm mentally ill to the point where you're obsessed with somebody you don't know. Like, you don't know them personally. So they spew lies and then they harass people close to me. And at this point, it's very annoying. Like, it's very a nuisance. I've gotten law enforcement involved. My sister's husband is a detective, so he does assist when I need it. However, just imagine how...
Okay, so I have a story time of a friend that, and she gave me permission to share the story because this story is, it's insane, okay? Like, it's insane. So sometime in 2019, my friend reconnected with her, I wouldn't say her, with a childhood friend of hers that she knew when she was like in elementary school. I guess his family had moved away. They moved down south. So keep in mind, we grew up in Connecticut. So his family had moved down south. Sometime in 2019 or 2018, he first starts messaging her on Facebook. I guess in 2019, he reaches back out again. And he's essentially saying that, hey, like I'm working for Amazon. I've moved and I am now back like in Connecticut. I guess he had moved in temporarily with his grandmother. And so that's where he was. In 2019, I was pregnant and I actually was living with my best friend for a little bit until I moved back in with my parents. But yeah, so when he was, trying to talk to her, at some point he just kind of like brought over his PlayStation and he would just make himself at home. Like he essentially would just make himself at home. And my best friend is like, she has difficulties enforcing her boundaries, but she was just like, oh, like, it's my friend. Like he and I hang out, like we go to the movies, all this and then some. They're not in a relationship. They're not talking. He clearly likes her. She's a little dense to it. She's kind of just thinking, oh no, like we're just friends kind of thing, right? Okay. Wrong. Completely wrong. So at some point he kind of says to her, hey, have you thought about like working at Amazon? Because at that time she was working like 3 part-time jobs, barely making 40 hours a week from all 3 jobs. So with Amazon, he was kind of saying that, she could definitely make more money per hour and have more hours per week. And they give you something called VTO and all that and then some. Okay, cool. And it was actually like the manufacturer. So like the factory or the warehouse, sorry. All right, cool. While she's there, right?
I have a stalker, and this update is probably the scariest one yet. Something really freaking scary happened last night. I was sound asleep, and at 3:28, my TV just turns on. And it doesn't just turn on to, like, the title screen or anything. It goes to that random video, like, ferrets from the same people who made Charlie the Unicorn. And I thought it was, like, an alarm. So I was like, Alexa, turn the alarm off, and she didn't. And I was like, Alexa, turn the podcast off, and she didn't. And I realized that it was coming from downstairs. I go downstairs because it's really loud, and I take the remote and I turn it off, and I go upstairs and I don't think anything of it. Then I remembered about that randomly at work, and I was like, that's really weird. And so I thought to check my cameras, and my free trial expired. So none of my cameras were visually picking up anything, but they did detect the motion. And at exactly 3:28, well, first of all, I think it was 3:13 before this happens, like 15 minutes before, it detected a motion where the cars are, and the car windows you can like see to the living room. And then at 3:28, right as I got up and turned the TV off, there was more motion in the cars. So I'm thinking maybe it was my stalker just trying to see if I was home or if I was awake or something. I don't know for sure, but do any of you guys know if you can turn on an LG TV without a remote? Like if you could do it on your iPhone, or if you could buy like the same remote and be able to turn it on like that? Because I'm not sure what it was, but yeah. And I'm going to provide receipts. Okay. So as you can see over here, where I circled, at 3:13 a.m., there was movement in my cars. Sorry, I blacked out my address over there, and then 3:28 inside front where I turned off the TV, there was more movement, and then once again at 3:28. So I think someone turned on my TV, was watching from my cars, and then left when they saw I was awake, but I'm not sure. I need you guys to help me and to help me figure it out. So yeah, if you have any information on how LG TV works, that would be great.
Story time of when I had a stalker. So this happened in my second semester of senior year of college, and I'm gonna call this boy Chamoy just in case he still watches my videos. So it was my first day of school, and I had my first class, and I decided to sit all the way in the back because it had the most empty seats. I was so sure that if anybody did sit in the back, they would not sit next to me. So then Chamoy walks in the door, and of course he decides to sit right next to me. And this honestly pissed me off because I was like, there's like 4 other empty seats and you picked the one next to me. As soon as he sits down, he starts to introduce himself to me, and I'm just like, hi. Because again, I don't like making friends in classes. I hate when people talk to me like, just be quiet. So as soon as the class starts, the professor's like, because it's the first day, we're gonna do partner work so you guys get to know each other a little bit better. And I'm just sitting there like, oh my god, do we really have to do this? Like, what is the point of this? Girl, can't you just teach us? So the only person sitting next to me is Chamoy, and I'm forced to be his partner. So as we're doing the partner work, he starts to compliment me. He says that I'm so pretty, that he likes what I'm wearing. Hopefully class was ending, but as I'm making my way out the door, Chamoy stops me and he's like, wait, can I get your number? And I just look at him and I'm like, no, and then I walk away. So that whole first week of class, I only saw him on Tuesdays and Thursdays because that's when the classes were held. So anytime I would have class with him and he would try to talk to me, I would either ignore him or I would give him like the most annoyed and driest replies, hoping that he would get the hint. So now it's the second week of the semester and this is where things get weird. So it's Monday and I'm so happy because I have no classes with Chamoy this day. Guess what happened? So of course my professor goes, we have a new student, and guess who it is? Chamoy. And this happened for every single class that I had. And at this point, I am so sussed out. Like, how did I go from having one class with Chamoy to 6 classes with him? And of course, he either made sure that he sat right next to me or as closely as he could to me. So now I'm seeing Chamoy literally all day, every day. And it seems like the only place I can go to get away from him is my dorm room. Or so I thought. So one day, I'm just chilling in my room and my roommates are in the living room. And we hear a knock on the door, but I don't think much of it because nobody ever knocks on the door for me. But all of a sudden, I hear my roommates just yelling my name. They're like, Jackie, Jackie, come out here. And I'm like, that's weird. They've never done this. So I go to the living room and my roommates are like, oh my god, Jackie, oh my god, somebody just slid a note under the door for you. The note is from Chamoy. So my roommates are all around me and they're like, oh my god, Jackie, your boy likes you, woo! While I'm over here looking at it like, he knows where I live? I think I have a picture of the note that he left, so I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna put it right here. So I'm done with my makeup, but if you guys want, I'll make a part 2 of the story. Trust me, it gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
How I found out I had a stalker for an entire year, part 2. If you're new here, this is a story time on when the stalker broke into my house for the first time and I was home alone. If you want all the details, you're gonna have to go watch the first video. A quick little catch up. I was hearing noises and I kind of ignored them because I thought they weren't anything. I rolled over to face my bedroom door when I saw my door handle go down super slow. I think that's when I realized, oh shit, there's somebody else on the other side of that door. The person on the other side of the door pushed the door open probably this much and I could see there was a camo coat on the other side. It was like my fight or flight immediately kicked in. I jumped out of bed and screamed, hey, hey, hey. The situation's not funny at all, but that's all I could think to say in the moment. When I jumped out of bed and screamed that, I slammed my hands as hard as I could onto the door, and I think when I did, it really scared him and he jumped back, so it closed. I locked the door, heard him run into our living room and then stop. My phone was on 1%, so I grabbed my charger and run into the bathroom. Plugged my phone up and locked the door behind me in the bathroom. And I sit there for probably 2 seconds. I think, did this just really happen? Is this real life? Am I crazy? I thought there's no way that actually just happened. I had to be dreaming. And then I was like, no, I'm not dreaming. I immediately called 911. And honestly, this sounds stupid, but I'd never called 911 before. So I was unsure if they were even going to answer. But sure enough, they picked up, thank God. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, it sounded like somebody had left through the garage door. And I was terrified whoever it was coming to bash in my window. Pretty sure the dispatcher asked if there was anywhere I could hide, like under my bed or something. I refused to come out of that bathroom. I was like, I'm not getting under my bed. When the police finally got there, they did the whole investigation thing. Basically just kind of brushed the whole thing off, looked around and was like, oh, they were just here to rob you. They were scoping the place out. But at the time, I just knew that didn't feel right. I really wanted to believe that, but it was honestly not all adding up. Because if they wanted to take something, I had a purse full of money sitting on the kitchen counter. I didn't have a debit card at the time, so the purse was full of cash. I had several cameras just sitting out. Each of those were worth several $100s a piece alone. And the keys were also in the ignition of my car in the garage that he walked right by. I don't think I mentioned this, but he got in through an unlocked window in the garage because all the other doors were locked. And it also didn't add up because whenever he ran outside, there was dew. And instead of it being boot prints, it was sock prints. He had taken his boots off whenever he came in the house. And I don't know about y'all, but I've never heard of a robber taking their shoes off when they enter the house. Unless you're trying to sneak up on somebody and be quiet.
So I started pacing and I was thinking and I was trying to make all these connections. What is it? You know, like Nipsey Hussle and the party. And was I, supposed to go to a party and how is it all connected? And I just was like, brrr. So I decided to go to the movies, which was something that I did like, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times a week around that time, because it was the one place that I could get my thoughts to turn off, that I could just be in a dark room and watch someone else's story on the screen. So I went to the movies, and afterward I went and sat at this little wine bar outside of the movie theater, and it was late and I was the only one there. And I just started Googling his name, the man who attacked me, his name, and Arizona, and nothing came up. And then I Googled his name and Phoenix, Arizona, and I got a hit, like I saw his name and it was all these addresses. Saw his most recent address, which was in Los Angeles. And then I saw his last address, which was in Surprise, Arizona, and that he had moved to Los Angeles in 2011. I called the detective and I freaked out and I was like, it was Surprise, Arizona, and it was in 2011 and that's when I moved here. And he was like, I know. I needed you to come do it on your own. And let me know if you remember anything else. I said, can you tell me anything? Why? Like, why are you asking these questions? Where did this come from? Said, I can't tell you everything. What I can tell you is that someone wrote a letter to the DA's office and they are in daily contact with the man who attacked me. And they wrote a 6-page letter that has information in it that we are investigating and that we are looking into. And that was where he was driving that day, was to talk to this person. That's all that I can tell you. I'm sorry. So I went home that night and, there were all these unanswered questions in my head, and it stayed that way for, how long? I think a little over 2 years. So flash forward to fall of 2020. There's a lot more things that happen in there that I'll tell you guys about, of course, but for the purpose of this information, the stalking piece and how this started to take shape, we're about to go to trial. And
this is a story to all the girls who are always nice and kind to the weird kid in class or that weird guy in the corner who's a loner. Be careful, because I learned my lesson the hard way. In undergrad, I really wanted to go to med school, and to be able to go to med school, you need to publish like a few papers or at least have some type of research experience. So I asked my biology professor to join his lab, to which he accepted. Great. And then my biology professor introduced me to another kid who was a couple years older than me at the time. We're just going to call him Adam. He was supposed to be my research mentor, and he's supposed to teach me everything that I know. And Adam, literally just imagine your typical skinny, nerdy Asian kid. But for some reason, he thought he was the hottest shit in the world. He would keep saying weird stuff like, oh, all the girls in OChem want me. And I would be like, what do you mean they want you? Like, they probably want you to help them with OChem. Because he was actually very smart, very intelligent. But he'll be like, no, they want me because I'm so hot. And I'm just like Adam, like, chill. Also, this kid has no friends, so I felt obligated to kind of be his friend, and he basically confided in me with everything. Then he started purposely scheduling our experiments so we would have to come into lab from like 9 p.m. to 2 to 3 in the morning. Usually with research, protocols can take a really long time, but you can time it out. Most people can come in from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the latest, but he was purposely wanting me and him to come into lab in the middle of the night. And that was really sketchy because I did it a couple of times. I convinced him and said, listen, I can't come in to lab in the middle of the night anymore. If that's what you want to do, you can do that by yourself, but let's time our lab better so we only have to work during the day. I basically brushed it off, didn't think about it. We only do our research during the day. This part is really important. He started talking to me about this girl that he's seeing. We're just gonna call her Bella. He asked her out on a date, and then months passed by, they started dating, and he would always come into lab and ask me like advice, like on where to take her out on dates, what they did that weekend. A new semester started. At this point, it's been like a year of him talking about Bella. I started my neurology class, to which I sat across from this girl who was very familiar, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Bella, because Adam had showed me pictures of Bella, so I knew what she looked like. So I went up to Bella and I was like, hi, like, I'm Mukta, I'm Adam's lab mate. She was really scared and she was like, how do you know me? How do you know what I look like? How do you know my name? Your boyfriend told me about you. Like, you guys have been dating for a year. I've heard so much about you. And she was like, Adam is not my boyfriend. Part 2, because I'm running out of time, and it gets worse. Let me tell you about the time that I had a stalker. So it all happened that I was working Thursday night at my retail job, and this guy came in. He was probably like late 30s, and I went up to go serve him. Automatically when I walked up to him, he looked so excited, and I like started a conversation with him, and then halfway through he was like, "I know you." And I was like, "Okay, like how do you know me?" He then opens his phone and he shows me that he's following me on Instagram. Now, mind you, this was before Love Island. I was kind of like, "Oh, that's nice." And then at the end of the sale, he asked me, "Can you please follow me on Instagram? Like, it means so much to me." I probably should have said no, but he was like in my face, and like I kind of just felt rude. So I was like, "Yeah, like I'll follow you, like whatever." And I was literally like his 5th follower. I got home and I looked at his profile. It turns out that he had been messaging me on Instagram for literal months. He also followed me on Facebook, and he had been messaging me and like trying to call me for actual months. Like those sort of like creepy messages, like "I love you so much, I'm obsessed with you, like you're beautiful, like we're gonna be together," like those sort of messages. I was so freaked out, like I unfollowed him and everything, and then the calls started, like the messages, non-stop calls trying to call me and tell me like something. I didn't answer any of them. I looked at his profile as well, and he has like a full wife and kids. Like a full wife and kids. It then gets to the next Thursday, the next week, and this is where it starts to get interesting because he rocks up at the store again. I told my manager that I'm not going to go serve him. Like, he literally just walks around the store. Like, he's not buying anything. He just wants to talk to me. And I tell my manager that I'm not going to go up to him. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not going up to him. I'm not talking to him. And she goes up to him and she kicks him out of the store. And he does leave. I've now blocked him on everything, and yet he's making new Instagram accounts and messaging me not on them and trying to call me on them, telling me we're supposed to be together, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but the next Thursday comes, so he knows that I work every Thursday. He like stalks the outside of the store, like thinking back, I shouldn't go in, maybe I shouldn't. Like he's literally standing there just like walking back and forth. And then he must finally decide to come in. My manager goes up to him and says, "You can't be in here, like you need to leave." And he leaves. We watch him go back to his car, and I see that he is parked directly next to my car inside the staff parking. Like, there is no reason for him to be parked in the staff parking. It's not even close to the entrance. So he is parked right next to my car, and I see him, instead of going into his car, he goes to the back of my car and does something to the back of the car. What the hell is he doing to my car? To this day, I don't know what he did because I went to go check and there was nothing there. Like, I could not see what he did to the back of the car. So I think maybe he did something and then he undid it. The messages keep coming, the new accounts keep coming, and I decide that I'm gonna interact with him. I'm gonna tell him he needs to go away. He needs to leave me alone. And he sends back this big message saying like I shouldn't leave and that I need to be with him. And I let me tell you about the time that I had a stalker. So it all happened that I was working Thursday night at my retail job, and this guy came in. He was probably like late 30s, and I went up to go serve him. Automatically when I walked up to him, he looked so excited, and I like started a conversation with him, and then halfway through he was like, "I know you." And I was like, "Okay, like how do you know me?" He then opens his phone and he shows me that he's following me on Instagram. Now, mind you, this was before Love Island. I was kind of like, "Oh, that's nice." And then at the end of the sale, he asked me, "Can you please follow me on Instagram? Like, it means so much to me." I probably should have said no, but he was like in my face, and like I kind of just felt rude. So I was like, "Yeah, like I'll follow you, like whatever." And I was literally like his 5th follower. I got home and I looked at his profile. It turns out that he had been messaging me on Instagram for literal months. He also followed me on Facebook, and he had been messaging me and like trying to call me for actual months. Like those sort of like creepy messages, like "I love you so much, I'm obsessed with you, like you're beautiful, like we're gonna be together," like those sort of messages. I was so freaked out, like I unfollowed him and everything, and then the calls started, like the messages, non-stop calls trying to call me and tell me like something. I didn't answer any of them. I looked at his profile as well, and he has like a full wife and kids. Like a full wife and kids. It then gets to the next Thursday, the next week, and this is where it starts to get interesting because he rocks up at the store again. I told my manager that I'm not going to go serve him. Like, he literally just walks around the store. Like, he's not buying anything. He just wants to talk to me. And I tell my manager that I'm not going to go up to him. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not going up to him. I'm not talking to him. And she goes up to him and she kicks him out the store. And he does leave. I've now blocked him on everything, and yet he's making new Instagram accounts and messaging me not on them and trying to call me on them, telling me we're supposed to be together, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but the next Thursday comes, so he knows that I work every Thursday. He like stalks the outside of the store, like thinking back, I shouldn't go in, maybe I shouldn't. Like he's literally standing there just like walking back and forth. And then he must finally decide to come in. My manager goes up to him and says, "You can't be in here, like you need to leave." and he leaves. We watch him go back to his car, and I see that he is parked directly next to my car inside the staff parking. Like, there is no reason for him to be parked in the staff parking. It's not even close to the entrance. So he is parked right next to my car, and I see him, instead of going into his car, he goes to the back of my car and does something to the back of the car. What the hell is he doing to my car? To this day, I don't know what he did because I went to go check and there was nothing there. Like, I could not see what he did to the back of the car. So I think maybe he did something and then he undid it. The messages keep coming, the new accounts keep coming, and I decide that I'm gonna interact with him. I'm gonna tell him he needs to go away. He needs to leave me alone. And he sends back this big message saying like I shouldn't leave and that I need to be with him. And I was stalked and watched by a man for over a year of my life, and it all began through public transport. When I originally posted about this, I did not expect 18 million people to be interested, but I guess looking back, it was a pretty crazy time in my life. I was sitting at the train station one day when I noticed a man sitting across from me, and I could tell that he was looking at me out of the corner of his eye. And when he noticed that I could see him looking at him, he smiled at me, I smiled back, and when the train came, we both got on the train and we both got off at the same stop. But I didn't see him after that, so I didn't think anything of it. Little did I know that this was the beginning of me being watched every single day of my life. I was in school at the time, so I was catching public transport nearly every day. I believe that this is how this man worked out every single thing about me. Where I was going, where I went to school, where I lived, what I did for fun, who my closest friends were. For the first couple of weeks, he would just follow me through the train line. I would be on my way to the train station, and at some point I would turn around and he would always be walking behind. At first I thought he was just a mature student that had moved in close by because he was always carrying a full backpack and always getting the trains. But after a few weeks I started to notice it didn't matter what time I was going to the station or what station I was getting off at, he was always there. I never saw him step foot out of a house, but at some point or another he always joined me. One day I started to wonder if I was just being paranoid, so when the train came, I stepped 1 foot onto the train, he stepped 1 foot onto the train. Stepped off the train, he stepped off the train. I was living in a house that backed out onto an empty field and bushland, so the day that I left the house and saw him standing by a tree in the empty field, I knew he had to have been waiting somewhere very close by my house. The scary thing about stalking is he wasn't doing enough to be incriminated at this point. Unless he has physically touched me or assaulted me, it's technically not a crime. He was just doing enough to torment me and make me feel insane. If I went to the park, I could look over and he was just sitting under a tree watching me. If I was at a restaurant, 2 minutes later, he would walk in by himself with the creepiest smile on his face, and he would sit across the room facing me to just stare. And you know how they say psychopaths have dead eyes? This man had the scariest dead eyes I've ever seen. At this point in my life, all of my closest friends knew about my stalker. I became increasingly paranoid. I stopped catching public transport, I stopped leaving the house by myself, and I tried not to go to public places. But then came the night that I was meeting with my crush, and this is where things really escalated. I told my mum I was staying at a friend's place, so I knew in order for me to go and meet up with this guy, I was going to have to catch the train. I waited until literally the minute before the train and then sprinted to the station. Mind you, this was at 10 o'clock at night. Ran directly onto the train. I thought I was safe, but then I saw a man board the train with a hood on and he had his head down. He had a backpack on, but I wasn't sure if it was him because this man wore the same outfit every single day. But today he was hiding his face. I called the guy that I was meeting up with, I put him on speaker and made sure that he was going to meet me at the station. I got off, he got off, but then I lost him. I figured maybe because I was with a guy, it had scared him off and I tried to enjoy my night. Being a teenager, we went to a park to hang out, but the whole time I just had this eerie, bad feeling. I couldn't help but feel like something really bad was going to happen this night. I got a few missed calls from my mum and she texted me saying, "Jade, are you okay? I can't sleep." I decided my intuition was right and that it was time to go home. I could feel myself being watched, I just couldn't see him. We left the park to walk back to the station. I looked behind me again, only this time in the very distance, I saw a hooded man waiting by the park. As we walked, he started to walk. I started walking faster, and when I got to the station, even though he was nowhere in sight, I decided to lock myself in the bathroom so that if he came, he would think that I wasn't there and he wouldn't get on the train. I waited until the very last minute when I heard doors closing and I ran out of the bathroom onto the train. I got on an empty carriage. I thought I was safe until I heard the connecting doors open and I saw his feet walking towards me. As far as I could see, the train was completely empty except for me and him, so I was terrified and started running through the carriages to find other people. I knew this was his perfect opportunity, but thank God I found a group of people who were on their way back from clubbing. I was frantically shaking and explained my situation to them, and they were nice enough to let me sit with them. But I knew that I wasn't in the clear because soon enough I was going to have to get off the train alone to the dark, empty streets. This is where it gets crazy, and this man had a crazy history, but I'm going to have to make a part 2.
I had a stalker at work, so I'm just going to quickly tell you about him. I don't see him anymore, but I'm going to tell you. So he's this older man. He told me his name once, but I don't remember. So first time he came through, he's like this older man. First time he came through, he was like super nice. And obviously I'm nice because it's customer service. I have to be nice. So I'm serving him. I'm like, yeah, we're having conversation. he comes through again. And like on the same day the next week. So he knows I work this day. So he comes through the same day the next week and he starts talking more. He's telling me about the car he just bought. He's telling me about the old motorbike he used to have that he had an accident on. He's telling me about his new dog. He goes, so you work this shift every week? I'm not thinking much of it. I'm like, oh, he's a nice guy, whatever. And then he's like, so what other days do you work? So I give him the days that I work. Silly me, okay? I understand that's my fault. And then he's like, okay, perfect, I'll see you on this day, which was the next day I was working. And I was like, okay. And this is when I first started going, why are you coming in just to see me? Shouldn't you be coming in to shop? Anyways, next time he comes through, this is the most wild thing he's like ever said. So he puts down a bunch of chocolates, like heaps. And I was like, oh, someone's got a sweet tooth. And I'm scanning it. He's like, no, I'm bringing it home for my wife. And I was like, oh, that's really lovely. And he's like, eh. He's like, oh, I've been married 3 times. So it's not like, it's nothing new to me. And I was like, oh, perfect. And then jokingly, I said, oh, so which one's been your favorite? Obviously, you'd say your current wife, right? Being like, oh, you know, my wife I'm with now, love of my life. He goes, oh, my second wife. The love of my life, I miss her every day, but we had to split up. And I was like, if I was your wife, I would off myself. There's no way I'm letting my husband talk about me like that. So I was like, oh, okay, what happened? And then he's telling me all about his second wife and how much he loved her and why he loved her and why they had to split up. And I was like, okay, you fucking weirdo. And then someone comes behind him in the register. And he's still talking about his wife. And then I finished, he paid, and he's like, I never get to speak to you long enough. And then he's like, I never get to speak to you long enough. I should get your number so that we can talk more. And I was like, oh. I was like, haha. And then I started to serve the next customer, so he went off. And I was like, that's weird, right? That's weird. So I told my manager about it, and I was like, look, it's a little bit weird. And then she was like, okay, if it happens again, like, let me know again. So he comes through again, and he's like, hey, so I never got your number last time. And I was like, yeah, because, like, I'm 17. No, actually, he actually said in this same transaction, right? So he's like, I never got your number last time. And I was like, ha, just laughing it off because I'm not going to be like, you can't have my number. I was just laughing it off and kept scanning. And then he's like, so you work here full time? And I was like, no, I'm still in school. He goes, school? And I was like, yeah, I'm 17. I'm in year 12. And he was like, right. From that day, I've never seen him again. So, like, thank you for abiding to the law and, like, wanting me to be overage. Thank you for not going for a minor, but, like, you should have assumed, okay? You probably should have assumed. I was working after school hours, I told you that. So, like, I wasn't ever working during the day. Probably could have guessed. And I personally don't think I look old enough to be working there full time. Like, at most, I'd be in uni. Odd. But I haven't seen him since. I don't know where he went. And every time I do see him, like when he just happens to be there at the same time as me, he doesn't come through my register anymore. And he's like, hi. Like, he's like awkward because he knows that he did something wrong. Anyways.
So, stalking me for 7 years. How did we get there? I'm sure you guys can tell that I've been a little reluctant to talk about the stalking piece. I think that's threefold. One, I would say, is the thing that scares me the most. Of all the things I've talked about, that's the thing that really gets under my skin and makes my skin crawl. Two, I would say, because it happened later in the timeline, that, you know, we didn't find out about that right away. There were clues that came along the way, and it was over the course of like months and years. Three, we just have the least amount of information from the police about that part, which I'll explain. First, I'll talk about how he was arrested. He left fingerprints, like I showed you guys. He also left DNA. That was something that when he stabbed me in the head, because it was just a kitchen knife from my kitchen, when it impacted the bone, his hand slid on it, and it cut his hand really bad. That's why when he was down on the ground, he was looking at his hands when I first sat up, like, and then he also left, I didn't tell you guys this yet, but he also left I think he dropped his cell phone, he dropped his ID, he dropped his credit card, He dropped his like headphones all on the ground while we were fighting. So that was all on the ground in my bedroom. So all to say the police had plenty to catch him with. They used his fingerprints. They ran him in the system. He was in the system. He was on parole. So this happened on a Thursday night, Friday morning, and they arrested him on Monday at his parole meeting. But I, in the ER, met the detective for the first time. And I won't say his name. I won't share his identity, but I don't think I said this on the podcast, but he's very handsome. And we have the same birthday. So shout out. But he arrested the man who attacked me on Monday. And then from there, he was our point of contact for asking questions or any next steps in there. So when they told me that he got arrested, I was still in the hospital. I was high on a bunch of pain medications. I was surrounded by family and friends. So I was in my bubble, and it didn't really sink in or process. And I was relieved, but at that time, like I didn't really feel much of anything, to be honest. But then when I got out of the hospital, the detective warned me to stay off of social media, to stay out of the public eye, to not go back to my old address, and to find someplace else to stay, because he said, even though the man who attacked me is in jail, they don't know if he would have anyone on the outside that would potentially come to intimidate me out of testifying or come to hurt me in any way. So me and my family got an Airbnb, and we stayed there for a couple months. My family stayed with me for, I think, like a month and a half. And I think I know it was in the Airbnb that I first started to feel this tickling, where I started to think, was he just walking by on the sidewalk and thought, I'm going to break into this girl's house today? Or had he been watching me for a few days? Had he kind of cased the apartment? Like it started to creep in, this fear that maybe I had been hunted. That was how it felt. That was the fear.
Get ready with me while I tell you about this guy I met in my apartment complex that turned out to be a weirdo. I had met this guy in my gym last year in like July, right? I always go to my apartment gym, and I would always have to bring Lennon with me because I had nobody to watch her. He had come up to me mid-workout to tell me that she was cute and asked me her name, and basically asked me what was my name. He told me that she was so cute and that her name was super unique. And then I saw him in the gym every so often. I started going to different workout classes, so I wasn't at my apartment gym the way that I was going, so I didn't see him that often. I'd see him here and there in our apartment complex, and he would like catch me at the park when I was there with my kids, and he would just come up and say, hey. Never really asked for my number or anything like that, so I didn't think he was interested, and I definitely wasn't. Long story short, I saw him at my pool yesterday, and I could tell that he was looking at me. I could tell that he was like feeling it out. He went into the gym, literally turned right back around after he saw me, went straight back to his house, put his bathing suit on, came back to the pool. Then he put his stuff in the cabana next to my cabana. I had Lennon's pool on the ground, so it was obvious that that was mine because I was the only person there with a kid. Anyway, he gets in the pool. I get out, and I'm going to breastfeed Lennon because it's time for her nap. She had skipped her nap. I lay down with her on the chair in the cabana, and he literally swam from the other side of the pool up next to my cabana, and I'm clearly breastfeeding her. And he just starts making small talk like a iguana was walking past us, and he was like, oh, watch out, he might get you. So anyway, by this time, Lennon had fallen asleep, and I'm getting up and I'm going back in the pool. And he starts making another small talk conversation with me. So then my two friends come over that I'm with at my pool, and we all start talking. We get out of the pool. He's like, does anybody want a beer? So he goes back to his house, grabs like a couple beers or whatever, and brings them to the pool after I had told him that I didn't want one because I have my daughter, and if you know me, you know I don't drink around my kids. If I'm drinking, I need to be drinking to get drunk, not wasting my time on a beer. So anyway, he gives beers to my one friend. My other friend doesn't drink. She's in recovery. He then asks me for my phone number in front of my friends, and I was like, sure.
because we were talking about like songs and what type of music we liked, and he was claiming he didn't know what indie folk was because that's like the type of music that I just love. And he was like, oh, I don't know those, can you like text them to me? He texted me when we left the pool because we were like after an hour of us talking to him. I'm like, all right guys, we gotta go. I was at the pool from like 11 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock at night. Got home, he had texted me and was like, hey, I think you forgot to send me the song. So I texted him the song. When I was at the pool right before we left, I said, what's your last name? Because I have a lot of his names in my phone. And he told me Jones. So right off the bat, I was like, that's weird, because it took him like a second to tell me his last name. It almost seemed like something was off with that. Or 2 hours later, I get a notification on Snapchat that he's like my friend, whatever. He wants to be my friend. So I don't know if he knows this or not, but like, dude, your name and then your last name is on Snapchat. So I had searched that Snapchat name and I find him on Facebook because I couldn't find him prior with the last name that he gave me. Snapchat came up on my phone. I was like, I wonder if that's his last name. So I looked it up and it was his last name. So I told my friends, I'm like, he lied to me about his last name. And they were like, who cares, Kayla? They're like, you're crazy. So I did a little digging, which didn't take much effort. And I clearly see that he's married. He is full on married. I go on his wife's profile. He's the profile picture of them at their wedding. It seems like they've been together a while. So I'm just like in shock. I'm like, wow, this guy is a piece of shit. Like, obviously I'm cutting communication off. He literally in that moment texted me and was like, hey, do you want to meet me downstairs for a glass of wine? And he literally sent me a picture of 2 wine glasses, the bottle of wine, and he's sitting at the pool. And I responded and I was like, did you lie to me about your last name? And he responded and he was like, yes, I can explain. And I'm like, go for it. Because in my eyes, once you lie to me, that's a wrap. So anyway, he tells me that he lied about his last name and told me that the reason that he lied is because he used to have a stalker situation and he was scared that that would happen again. Number 2, it was clear he was lying because he didn't want me to look him up on Facebook and figure out that he was married. So basically he was like, if you came downstairs tonight and had a drink with me, I was going to open up to you and tell you all of that. Bullshit. Told him I was like not interested at all in even communicating as friends just because like you're married. He tried to give me the excuse of like, oh, she's in Pennsylvania, she's not here. I don't understand why 2 people that were attracted to each other couldn't like just hang out and have good conversation. Sir, you are married. Like, the fact you want to drink with me at the pool at night is a red flag in itself. And he basically said like, oh, since you told me you were moving on Friday, I figured I had nothing to lose. So because I'm moving, you feel comfortable to like hang out with me so that like I never see your wife here? When I tell you the guys in South Florida are basically all like this, they are all liars and manipulators. Anyway, that's the makeup look. Love you, bye.
One of my biggest fears unfortunately became a reality. Get ready with me, story time. Over 5 years ago, I actually used to work at a grocery store in my city. At this job, I first started off as a grocery bagger, and then I moved my way up to be a GM, which is a general merchandiser. So I basically restock products. And then I shortly made my way to becoming a clerk, which is another word or term for cashier. I do want to mention when I became a clerk or a cashier, I was working at that job for maybe like a year. I was about to hit like a year. In my opinion, when you work at a grocery store or somewhere where you're helping out customers, kind of start to get a feel of who your regular customers are. It was a weekday and I was working in the afternoon, and this guy came in my line. And again, remember I said I do recognize regulars? Well, I just knew that this guy wasn't a regular. At least I had never seen him. So this older man comes into my line, and in my opinion, he's one of those guys that if I were to see out on the streets, I would probably like turn the other way. Not even like that I'm judging the way he looks. It's just like the way he was like looking at me, like it was an evil look, if that makes sense. Like it was scary. Like me being alone and I see that, I'm running the other way. This man is next in my line. He had one item. He asked me like the most like random question. He was like, hey, do you know where this item is? And I was just like, oh, it's like right behind you. I don't know, it was just like weird. It's like he knew, but he still wanted to ask me. And then the second weird question that he asked me was, what is my name? And if you work at a grocery store, you're always gonna have a name badge, so it was just weird that he asked me for my name. I do understand if you want to get to know me and you are a regular, you're gonna become a regular at the store, you kind of just want to have a conversation. But the way he asked me for my name wasn't just like a normal conversation. It was kind of like, oh, I want to investigate you, who are you, one of those type of conversations. Kind of just let it be, and I was like, all right, Ash, just move on, just scan his order and get him out of here. He was the type of like customer where he would just like look at you, scan his order, like he would just like stare you down. And personally, when I go to a grocery store, I don't even like look at the cashier. If I do, I'll like glance at her, but nothing where I'm like staring at her, like creeping her out. Anyway, so that guy leaves, and then later on in the night, I think I was working like a 12 to 9, and I remember this guy came around like 9 o'clock, almost time for like me to clock out. And one of the girls comes up to me and says, hey, like there's this guy, he's looking for you. And I was like, who? Like, do I know who he is? And she was like, I'm not sure, but like he was describing somebody and the only person that fits the description is you. And I was like, that's a little bit weird. Also, I do want to mention that I was in the break room at this time when she told me that this guy was like looking for me. Me being me, I was like, who's this person? I want to go see who it is. But I'm a very observant person. I'm also a very like paranoid person, so I was being sneaky about it. I would kind of just like peek a little bit, or I would go up to like the office and I would kind of try to see from the office out to the store. Sure enough, when I spot this man, I was like, dude, there's no way this is the guy that I had the weird encounter with earlier in the day. Okay, like that's weird. Why is he asking for me? Like, I'm not getting good vibes off of him. I felt very uncomfortable, and I feel like one of like my biggest fears is always like having a stalker. I feel like that's just any girl's fear, is having a stalker, right? I refused to go back out on the floor, and he ended up leaving. And tell me why the next day he comes back and I'm at the register, and one of the girls comes up to me and she was like, hey, like I think that guy is back, I recognize his car. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, that guy who asked about you, he was like, I don't think he's walked in, have you seen him? And I was like, no, I haven't seen him yet. Why? She's like, okay, I'm gonna switch spots with you, you go hide. And I was like, oh my god, like there's no way this is my reality right now. So thankfully she let me out of the register. I ended up going in the very back to like the milk box area, and there's also a medicine room. So I literally hid in the medicine room, and I was like, bro, there's like no way that I have a stalker right now. Like, what in the actual fuck? Before my coworker actually let me out, she told me to stay nearby the back phone in case he leaves, that way I can come back out. And I was like, okay, cool. So I remember she ended up calling the phone, and I answered, and she was like, hey, like this guy's looking for you again. And I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, like he's looking for you, and I don't feel like he's looking for you for a good reason. It's like, because it's been an hour and he's still in the store and he still hasn't bought anything. She was like, usually if you're gonna be in the store for this long, you at least have a cart full of groceries. I'm gonna probably have to wait until after closing for this like man to leave, or until I'm able to leave. So to keep my mind busy, I ended up leaving the medicine room and I went to the milk box, which honestly is still in the back, but when it's in this corner and the milk box is on the other side. And so I just started filling up milk because I was like, if I'm gonna be back here, let me at least help the closer out. I'm filling the milk up, and I just see like a hand right there like grabbing milk, or faking that he's gonna grab a milk. And I was like, bro, there's no way this is my stalker. And so I look, and sure enough, it was him. And I was like, oh, hell no. So I literally left the milk box area and I went back to the medicine cabinet, or the medicine room, and I just stood there. I was really hiding in between boxes. I think I even have a Snapchat. I might insert it if I do find it, of me literally hiding in the milk box. I was like, bro, I can't believe this is my reality right now. But at this point, it was already closing time, and we closed the grocery store at 11 o'clock. I was supposed to clock out at 9 o'clock, and tell me why I did not leave the grocery store until almost 12 in the morning. I left that late because this man's car was still in the parking lot. He had one of those car vehicles where, like, you know, when somebody passes away, they have like that certain type of vehicle they put like the casket in and the person in. Yeah, he had one of those. Yeah, when I seen that he had that type of car, I was like, oh hell, I'm not about to walk out, and the last thing I need is for him to know what kind of car I drive. This guy finally leaves, and then I end up leaving as well. As I'm on my way home, I decided that I wanted to go to the gym, and the gym to my job was only like 3 minutes away. It was over the bridge. I walked into the gym and I went to the squat rack, and tell me why I seen my stalker at the gym.
Get ready with me while I talk about my stalker story. I've honestly been waiting like 2 years to tell this story because it was kind of scary. We didn't want this person to see this video or find where we were, but I think it's been long enough now to talk about it. Also, ignore my self-tan hands. Really, I haven't figured it out yet, but we're working on it. This started back in 2021, September, end of summer. I just started dating my boyfriend. We were sitting on the couch, drinking wine, just made some dinner, and we heard the doorbell ring. My boyfriend got up to answer the door. We weren't expecting anyone, so it was a little weird. He answered the door and I just hear this female voice talking. I looked around the corner because I thought it was kind of weird. There was this lady in her 30s, it looked like. She was wearing a black tight dress and really tall heels. This lady had a bottle of tequila in her hand and she handed it to my boyfriend and she was like, I'm so sorry for the noise last night. I live in the unit directly below you. We were doing construction and I just wanted to bring this bottle of tequila to say sorry if it disturbed you guys at all. We were confused because we didn't hear any noise the night before. We were like, okay, it's fine. Like, thank you so much. It's okay. Don't worry about it. A few days go by. It's morning time, really early in the morning. We are just waking up, getting ready for work, and we hear the doorbell ring again. My boyfriend's roommate answered the door. I heard a bunch of commotion. So I open the door and I look outside and I see my boyfriend's roommate like shoving the door closed on this lady. So obviously it was the same lady as before. She had showed up at 8 in the morning, rang the doorbell, and she was wearing nothing but a towel, like completely naked in a bath towel with her hair wet. And she was trying to come into the apartment. She was like, who's there? Is it just you guys? Is it just you guys? And he was like, yeah, like what, can we help you? Like, what are you doing? And she tried to shove her way into the apartment and my boyfriend's roommate had to slam the door on her and basically yell at her to get out. We didn't really know what to think of it. We thought maybe she thought they were cute and was trying to shoot her shot and then she was pissed that they wouldn't let her in or something. We kind of just like let it go at the time. About a month goes by. Me and my boyfriend are getting ready to leave to go get sushi. We open the door and we look down and there's a folded up piece of paper on the doormat. We pick up the piece of paper and it is literally Morse code. A piece of paper with sentences on it, with punctuation, with lines and dots. I literally have a photo of it. Like, it was a Morse code note. I took pictures and videos of this entire ordeal that I can post, maybe. There's honestly so much to this story, so this is like a summarized version, but yeah. So on the way to sushi, I'm like looking up Morse code on my phone and I'm like deciphering this note. I finally got the whole thing decoded and it said, who are you and what exactly do you want from me? I'll be back in 30 minutes. We didn't really know what to do, so obviously we went to dinner. We were kind of expecting that when we got back there would be another one, and there was. Morse code note number 2. If you truly want me, call me. I no longer trust you. We obviously had no idea who this person was, so we weren't responding to the Morse code notes, but it basically became a series of Morse code notes from this lady. She kept leaving them at the door. This was like a week-long thing. Every night she would leave a new one. It would always happen at like 6 or 7 p.m. Like, here's another one. I don't understand. I will accept Tony, Leandro, or David. They need to call me today. And then just like some random stuff at the bottom. And then there's 3 more. The next one said, are they dead? I don't care if they moved on. I want to make sure they are alive and well, exclamation point, question mark. As for the other gentleman, I am not a prostitute. I need to get to know them first, nor your slave. Also, throughout this whole thing, kind of left out this part, she would come to the door and ring the doorbell over and over and over again. Ding, 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 ding. We wouldn't even answer the door. Like we were scared of her, so we wouldn't even open the door. Most of the time we would just stay and hide and be quiet. She would ring the doorbell over and over and over again, yell stuff through the door and leave these notes. She randomly left a note that had the alphabet on it, and then when we opened it, she stopped using Morse code
and she actually wrote in English this time. I don't understand, and unless you are specific on terms and whom you're suggesting, I don't get it, so I won't choose. FYI, you don't own me, and don't think for a minute that I forgot you were trying to ruin me. How can I ever trust you? P.S. The problem in my dreams was that. No open borders. Also, the way she was writing in that looked like someone who is clearly frantic, like it was scary. At this point, we know that we're dealing with someone who clearly has mental health issues. You never know what someone's capable of, so we didn't want to make the situation worse. So we kept ignoring it and leaving it alone. This whole thing basically started a series of months. This lasted like over a year. She would bang up on her ceiling at us with a broom at all hours of the night, like in morning times, night times. But there was a period of time where she would come every single night and ring the doorbell over and over and over again. Here is a clip of how she would ring the doorbell when she would go crazy. I honestly have so many videos of that I can show a different time. But yeah, at this point, we decided to call the cops, told them what was going on. We asked them to come down and tell her to please leave us alone. Submitted a police report. We showed them all the notes and everything. And they would come down and they said that they would go knock on her door, but if she didn't answer, they couldn't do anything about it. We had called the cops multiple times because this kept happening. Even when they would come, like nothing would change. She would still do it again and they would do nothing really about it. They would say, we can't help you guys until she actually does something to hurt someone. One of the last interactions that we had with her, she came to the door, did the ringing the doorbell thing again. At this point, we would open the window, the kitchen window, because we could see it out by the door. We'd open the kitchen window and be like, please leave us alone, go away, like leave us alone. We would yell for help from the neighbors, being like, help, this lady is like harassing us. One of the last interactions that we had with her before we moved out and everything, she came to the window and she told us that she thought that we were paid actors and that we sent paid actors to her door. The cops were paid actors. We were paid actors. And that we sent paid actors to her door to harass her. The whole time, she told us that we were harassing her and we needed to leave her alone. She told the cops that we were harassing her. We needed to leave her alone. Clearly, she was just mentally ill, which we understand, but also we were being harassed, so it was a lot. Here is a clip of one of the last times how violent she got with ringing our doorbell. It was bad. It was really bad.
She's hiding. Oh my god.
So, yeah. That's that. I can honestly talk about this for so long. I have so many videos. I have a whole album in my phone called Stalker that has every video and all the info about this, so I could talk about it forever. So yeah, let me know if you want a part 2 of my stalker story, but that's pretty much the summed up version.